At 66 years old, Tony Tucker carries the perspective of a man who shared the ring with giants. A former IF heavyweight champion, Tucker fought in one of boxing's most dangerous eras, facing legends like Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, and Evander Holyfield. He wasn't just a contender. He was a skilled, intelligent heavyweight who pushed elite fighters to their limits. When Tucker speaks about boxing greatness, it comes from experience. He understands what real power feels like. He knows the pressure of championship rounds. He has stood across from some of the most feared men in history. So when he finally revealed the 10 boxers he admired most, his choices reflected not hype, but respect earned through battle. These are the fighters Tony Tucker believes truly defined greatness. 10. Larry Holmes. Tony Tucker has always spoken about Larry Holmes with deep respect, especially when it comes to fundamentals. Holmes possessed what Tucker considers one of the most important weapons in heavyweight boxing history: a commanding jab. It wasn't just fast, it was accurate, persistent, and intelligent. Holmes used it to control range, break rhythm, and wear opponents down mentally as well as physically. Tucker admired how Holmes never rushed. He understood pacing, conserving energy early while building pressure round by round. What impressed Tucker most was Holmes's durability and consistency. He defended his title repeatedly against top contenders and rarely allowed himself to be outworked. Even when fights became competitive, Holmes maintained composure. Tucker values discipline, and Holmes exemplified that trait. He trained seriously, stayed focused, and relied on preparation rather than hype. To Tucker, Holmes represents the blueprint of a classic heavyweight champion, skilled, tough, and fundamentally sound. In an era filled with punchers and personalities, Holmes proved that intelligence and structure could reign supreme. 9. Riddick Bowe. Riddick Bowe earned Tony Tucker's admiration for blending size with inside skill. Standing over 6 feet 5 inches tall, Bowe could have relied solely on reach and power, but he chose to fight on the inside with confidence. Tucker respected that versatility. Bowe's ability to lean on opponents, dig to the body, and exchange at close range made him uniquely dangerous. The trilogy between Bowe and Evander Holyfield stood out to Tucker as proof of Bowe's courage. Those fights were grueling, and Bowe never shied away from brutal exchanges. He absorbed punishment and returned it with authority. Tucker understands how difficult it is for a big man to sustain that pace, which made Bowe's stamina even more impressive. Tucker also admired Bowe's natural talent. He moved well for his size and possessed sharp combinations uncommon for heavyweights. Though Bowe's career had ups and downs, Tucker believes his peak years showed extraordinary potential. To Tucker, Bowe symbolizes a heavyweight who wasn't afraid to test himself. He chased defining fights rather than protecting his record, and that willingness to risk everything is something Tucker deeply respects. 8. George Foreman. George Foreman fascinates Tony Tucker because he represents two completely different eras of dominance. The young Foreman was overwhelming, a powerhouse who dismantled opponents with frightening strength. Tucker admired the raw force Foreman brought into the ring, especially the way he pushed opponents backward and broke their resistance. But it was Foreman's comeback that truly impressed Tucker, returning after a long absence and eventually reclaiming the heavyweight title at an advanced age, demonstrated patience, belief, and reinvention. Foreman adjusted his style, becoming more economical with his punches and relying on timing rather than youth. Tucker respects fighters who evolve. Foreman didn't depend on speed later in his career, he relied on experience. That maturity resonated with Tucker, who understands how difficult longevity is in the heavyweight division. To Tucker, Foreman proves that power never truly fades, and that mental strength can carry a fighter beyond physical limits. His two careers together form one of the most remarkable stories in boxing history. 7. Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield stands out to Tony Tucker as one of the bravest heavyweights ever. Moving up from cruiserweight to face naturally larger men required enormous confidence. Tucker admired that courage. Holyfield never hesitated to engage, regardless of size disadvantages. What impressed Tucker most was Holyfield's engine. Round after round, Holyfield maintained pressure and composure. Even when hurt, he responded with combinations and determination. Tucker understands that kind of resilience firsthand. It takes mental toughness to stand in front of heavyweight punchers and refuse to yield. Holyfield also displayed technical discipline. He wasn't reckless. He combined aggression with structure. Tucker respected how Holyfield prepared for each opponent and adjusted accordingly. To Tucker, Holyfield embodies heart. Titles and accolades matter, but courage, under fire, defines legacy. Holyfield consistently stepped into dangerous situations and emerged stronger. That fearless mindset is why Tucker places him among his favorites. 6. Mike Tyson. Tony Tucker experienced Mike Tyson's intensity firsthand, which gives his admiration unique credibility. Tyson's speed in the early rounds shocked many opponents. Tucker respected the precision behind Tyson's aggression, the way he slipped punches and countered with explosive hooks. Tyson's ability to close distance quickly stood out. Heavyweights rarely move that fast, and Tucker recognized the difficulty of neutralizing that pressure. Under Cus D'Amato's guidance, Tyson displayed disciplined head movement and devastating combinations. Tucker admired that structure. While Tyson's career later faced turbulence, Tucker believes his prime years showcased a rare combination of power and coordination. Few fighters could survive his early onslaught without breaking mentally. Tucker's own durability against Tyson reinforced his respect for the champion's strength. To Tucker, Tyson represents controlled aggression at its peak. When focused, Tyson was nearly unstoppable. Facing him gave Tucker insight into just how dangerous the heavyweight division can be. 5. Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis impressed Tony Tucker with intelligence as much as power. Lewis combined physical advantages with tactical awareness. Tucker admired how Lewis used his jab and reach to dictate distance rather than relying solely on brute force. After setbacks, Lewis returned stronger, correcting flaws and refining strategy. Tucker respects fighters who learn from defeat instead of being defined by it. Lewis demonstrated growth throughout his career, eventually becoming one of the most complete heavyweights of his era. Lewis's patience inside the ring also stood out. He rarely rushed exchanges. Instead, he controlled tempo, forcing opponents into mistakes. Tucker sees that as a sign of maturity and preparation. To Tucker, Lewis symbolizes evolution. Talent alone doesn't sustain a career, adaptation does. Lewis's willingness to improve and take on top competition cemented his place among Tucker's favorites. 4. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali inspired Tony Tucker long before Tucker entered the professional ranks. Ali's movement, speed, and charisma changed how heavyweights were perceived. Tucker admired how Ali floated around the ring, making larger men look slow. Ali's courage during grueling battles left a lasting impression. Tucker respects fighters who endure punishment yet remain mentally unshaken. Ali demonstrated that resilience repeatedly. Beyond technique, Ali's confidence stood out. He believed in himself under immense pressure. Tucker understands how vital that belief is at the championship level. To Tucker, Ali represents more than a champion, he represents influence. Ali elevated boxing's profile worldwide. His combination of skill and heart makes him a permanent fixture among Tucker's favorites. 3. Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard earned Tony Tucker's admiration through adaptability. Leonard could box gracefully or trade when necessary. Tucker values fighters who can adjust mid-fight, and Leonard excelled at reading opponents. Leonard's willingness to face elite competition repeatedly impressed Tucker. He stepped into the ring against formidable rivals and embraced risk. That courage resonates with Tucker's own competitive mindset. Leonard's speed and timing allowed him to control key moments. Tucker believes championship fights are often decided by small adjustments, and Leonard mastered those adjustments. To Tucker, Leonard exemplifies composure under pressure. He thrived on big stages and delivered when expectations were highest. 2. Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hearns stands out to Tony Tucker because of his ambition and devastating power. Hearns' right hand was among the most feared punches in boxing. Tucker admired how Hearns used his height and reach aggressively. Hearns didn't confine himself to one division. He pursued titles across multiple weight classes, chasing legacy rather than comfort. Tucker respects that boldness. Even after difficult losses, Hearns returned to challenge elite opponents again. That resilience left an impression. To Tucker, Hearns symbolizes risk-taking and belief. He fought to define greatness, not to preserve records. 1. Tony Tucker. Placing himself at number 1 reflects Tony Tucker's understanding of his own journey. Competing in an era filled with legends required toughness and self-belief. Tucker went the distance with formidable champions and proved he belonged among them. He values resilience, the ability to stand firm against overwhelming power. Facing elite heavyweights sharpened his perspective on greatness. Tucker believes surviving that era, competing without fear, and maintaining discipline earned him recognition. His career may not always receive the spotlight, but he understands what it took to endure those battles. At 66, Tony Tucker's list reflects the mindset of a heavyweight warrior. He chose fighters who showed courage, adaptability, discipline, and heart. From Ali's inspiration to Tyson's explosiveness and Lewis's intelligence, each name represents a different path to greatness. When a man who fought giants shares his respect, it carries weight. Because Tony Tucker knows exactly what it takes to stand in the ring and survive.